Have you ever wondered if gladiators really fought to the death, as we see in movies, or if that's just a Hollywood myth? You might be surprised to learn that, historically, not all battles ended in bloody tragedy. Many gladiators were too valuable to be discarded in a single fight. Some records suggest that only a small fraction of the fights resulted in a fatal outcome, contradicting the cinematic portrayal of inevitably lethal duels. Now imagine stepping into the Colosseum, the grandest stage of entertainment in ancient Rome, where the stands roared with shouts and bets. At the center, trained and armed men faced off, not just with swords but with courage and strategy. While glory and danger were ever present, the idea that every fight was a till death, two-part scenario might be as fictional as Hollywood scripts. Movies like Gladiator 2000 have mesmerized us with epic scenes of heroism and carnage, but the reality goes far beyond the thrilling frames. Why would the pragmatic Romans allow their best fighters to die needlessly? After all, every skilled gladiator represented a significant investment, months of training, food and promotion. So when the crowd roared in the stands, they weren't just thirsty for blood, but for a lasting spectacle. Politics also played a role. For influential leaders, organizing grand and well-executed games was a way to please the masses and maintain social order. Want to know how these combats were actually organized, what rules governed the battles, and how this circus fit into Rome's power game? In the next few minutes, we'll dismantle myth after myth and reveal what really happened in the sands of antiquity. The truth behind Gladiators is just as captivating as any movie, or perhaps even more so. The fascination with gladiators seems to transcend centuries. From Hollywood epics to TV series, these ancient Roman fighters hold a prominent place in popular imagination. Just think of the success of Gladiator 2000, starring Russell Crowe, which captivated audiences with the story of the Roman general Maximus and his journey of vengeance in the arenas. The emotional power of witnessing an ordinary man, even if fictional, defying political forces and earning applause amid the blood-stained sand resonates strongly with viewers of all ages, especially those who appreciate action, drama, and perseverance. It's no surprise that cinema heavily invests in the grand setting of Rome, with elaborate costumes, special effects, and epic soundtracks, creating an immersive experience. For many of us, watching these productions feels almost like a journey through time, offering a fictional glimpse into the colossal battles that once unfolded before thousands of real spectators. The collective imagination tends to depict gladiators as tragic heroes who face death daily, fighting for either freedom or eternal glory. However, this perception may be the result of dramatic adaptations. Filmmakers need to move audiences, so exaggerating the lethality or portraying the arena as a relentless battleground often serves the narrative. Today, references to gladiators extend beyond the screen. In modern sports events such as mixed martial arts or even American football, expressions like battle in the arena and warriors on the field are used to evoke that aura of strength and courage. Pop culture has embraced the gladiator figure as a symbol of resilience, honor, and spectacle. From theme parks and museums to fashion, the image of these fighters remains alive, representing a past that blends violence, entertainment, and mass politics. However, it is precisely this mix of elements that fuels various interpretations about who these warriors truly were, how they lived, and why they continue to captivate us today. Does Hollywood's portrayal do justice to historical reality, or is the truth even more complex, involving politics, economics, and social manipulation? Let's embark on a journey to answer these questions, diving into a world where life and death shared the same arena, but above all, where spectacle was king. First, we need to understand who the gladiators were, and to fully grasp the figure of the gladiator, it is essential to understand that this term does not refer to a homogeneous group of people. There was a wide range of backgrounds, motivations, and social conditions involved. In general, we can identify three major categories of individuals who became gladiators. First, the slaves. Many gladiators were indeed slaves, people captured in wars or sold due to debts or as punishment for crimes. After being purchased by a gladiator school, called a ludus, they underwent intense training to become skilled fighters capable of entertaining the public in the arenas. The second group was the prisoners of war. The Roman Empire expanded its borders over centuries, and with each successful military campaign, thousands of prisoners could be brought to Rome and other major cities. Some were destined for forced labor, while others ended up in gladiator schools. In certain cases, enemy peoples with specific combat skills, such as the Thracians from the region of Thrace or Gauls from Gaul, became highly valued gladiators, as their prior military experience made for even more thrilling performances for the audience. And then there was a third group, free citizens in search of fame and fortune. Perhaps the least known aspect of the gladiatorial world is that of free men who volunteered to enter the arena. These were Roman citizens or individuals from the empire's provinces who saw combat as a chance to rise socially or gain notoriety. Although the gladiator's career was risky and carried a certain social stigma, after all, displaying one's body in combat was seen as unworthy for the Roman elite, success in the arena could bring significant material rewards and even a kind of cult among fans. Some people were willing to risk everything for immediate glory. It is important to note that the gladiator school was not merely a place of suffering or torture. Of course, conditions were harsh and discipline was strict. However, the financial investment made by owners and trainers, also called lanistae, in acquiring and training gladiators encouraged basic care for their physical well-being. If a gladiator became well known, it meant a bigger audience, more bets, and consequently, more profit for the lanista. Therefore, in some cases, there was even access to specialized medical care, something rare in antiquity. So how did the fights actually take place? When we think of gladiator battles, our minds instantly conjure up images of colossal arenas, like the famous Colosseum in Rome. But it's important to remember that these spectacles also took place in many other cities across the empire. There were smaller amphitheaters, or even temporary structures set up for specific events in more remote regions. First, we need to understand that gladiator games were, at their core, carefully planned. The magistrate or politician responsible for sponsoring the event, often someone seeking greater popularity among the people, covered the costs of production, the rental or maintenance of the arena, and the fees charged by the owners of gladiator schools. This sponsorship had a clear objective: to win the favor of the population, creating an atmosphere of collective euphoria and gratitude, which could translate into votes, political support, or simple social prestige. The event days were announced in advance. Much like major modern sporting events, such as the Super Bowl or basketball championship finals, the population planned ahead to attend and enjoy the free entertainment or tickets at symbolic prices offered by the organizers. From the early hours of the morning, people would head to the stands to secure their seats. There was a division by social class. The upper seats were reserved for the poorer spectators, while wealthier citizens occupied the lower areas, closer to the arena. Interestingly, the programming of Roman arenas resembled a true fight card, similar to what we see today in mixed martial arts, MMA, or professional boxing events. Gladiator battles were usually not the first attraction of the day. It was common for the spectacle to include venations, animal hunts. Early on, there were presentations featuring exotic beasts brought from the farthest provinces of the empire. The Romans were fascinated by the sight of lions, tigers, elephants, or rhinoceroses, often pitted against specially trained hunters. Then came the public executions. On some days, condemned criminals or prisoners of war were executed in the arena, becoming part of the entertainment. Though barbaric by modern standards, this practice served to demonstrate the coercive power of the state. Between acts, there were entertainment intermissions. Musicians, acrobats, and other performers entertained the audience while the arena was cleaned or prepared for the main event. And finally, the gladiator battles. These typically took place toward the middle or end of the day, when the audience was already excited and eagerly awaiting the climax of the spectacle. Contrary to what many films depict, gladiators did not step onto the sandy floor for a chaotic massacre. There were rules, however rudimentary they may seem by today's standards. In many cases, gladiators were matched according to weapon categories or fighting styles, ensuring that the duel was both visually interesting and balanced. The main styles included Murmillo, characterized by the use of a large rectangular shield, similar to a legionary's shield, and a short sword, Gladius. Retiarius fought with a net and a trident wearing minimal armor. The goal was to entangle the opponent with the net before delivering the final strike. Thraex, Thracian, wielded a curved sword, Sika, and a small rectangular shield, along with leg guards. Samnite, armed with a short sword and a large oval shield, along with a helmet and specific arm protections. Hoplomachus, inspired by Greek hoplite soldiers, carrying a round shield and a short spear, along with a sword. Each gladiator style had advantages and disadvantages against another, so organizers aimed to balance matchups to make the spectacle exciting, creating tension and unpredictability. At the same time, there was a referee, called the Summa Rudis, who mediated the combat, ensuring that the rules were followed. For instance, making sure a fallen gladiator had the chance to get up or calling out a move as a violation if it strayed from the fighting style of each category. But now we need to understand, was a gladiator's death truly inevitable? One of the most common images associated with gladiators is that fighting to the death was an absolute rule. Indeed, there was always the possibility that one of the combatants could be killed in the arena, but this was not the outcome of every duel. Historical accounts and artistic records indicate that many fights ended without the death of either participant. Let's see why. High training costs. Every gladiator represented a substantial investment for their owners. Training a fighter required food, medical care, and daily practice, all of which were expensive. Losing an experienced gladiator in every fight would have been a huge financial loss for the lanista. Popularity and rewards. Some gladiators became celebrities of their time. Winning multiple battles increased their market value. A champion, known for their strength and skill, attracted large crowds. Killing them unnecessarily would have been a waste of profit potential, not to mention frustrating for fans eager to see their idol fight again. Decision of the audience or the editor of the games. In many cases, when a gladiator was clearly defeated, they had the opportunity to plead for mercy by raising their index finger. It is important to note that the decision to spare or execute the loser could be influenced by the spectators or the event organizer, known as the editor. If the crowd demanded blood, or if the sponsor wished to cater to the audience's more aggressive desires, execution was more likely. Otherwise, clemency was granted, allowing the defeated fighter to live and fight another day. Variety of combat types. Not all presentations were one-on-one duels. Sometimes there were group battles, reenactments of historical fights, or even comedic matches, similar to theatrical skits. These variations enhanced the spectacle, but did not necessarily lead to the systematic death of all participants. All these nuances make gladiatorial combat resemble more of an intensely violent sporting event rather than a guaranteed slaughter. Of course, death did occur. It heightened the risk, the drama, and consequently the popular appeal. But not every confrontation ended in the bloodshed that we almost automatically associate with gladiators today. So why did the Empire promote a spectacle filled with so much bloodshed? One of the most important aspects in understanding the popularity and longevity of gladiator games is the political use of such events. The expression panem et circenses, bread and circuses, perfectly illustrates this strategy. Keeping the population distracted and minimally satisfied, for example through grain distribution, was a way to reduce social tensions and prevent potential revolts. The offering of public spectacles such as chariot races, theatrical plays, and gladiatorial combat served greater interests. Ambitious politicians financed these events to gain the favor of the people. It was common, for example, for a candidate running for office to fund free games, distribute food, or offer small gifts in the stands. In this way, the masses, entertained and grateful, became more inclined to support the benefactor in their political ambitions. We cannot underestimate how effective this was. In a society where most of the population lived in simple conditions with little access to sophisticated distractions, a day at the arena represented an escape from an exhausting routine. Additionally, the chance to see people facing danger and displaying combat skills deeply stirred the emotions of the Roman audience, which valued courage, virtues, and martial honor as central ideals of their culture. Another reason is that, during the imperial period, the games also served as a showcase for the emperor's power. By promoting luxurious and grand combat events, the ruler reinforced his image as a benevolent authority and a patron of the arts and entertainment. At the same time, he reminded everyone that he held control over the life and death of gladiators and prisoners, embodying the figure of the absolute master. This duality, entertainment and a demonstration of power, was a formidable propaganda tool. On the other hand, there was a darker side to this system. While the people were busy cheering for the fights and discussing the latest stars of the arena, deeper issues such as inequality, corruption, or abuse of power could be temporarily overshadowed. The arena was, above all, a pressure valve for social tensions. A citizen frustrated with the government could vent their anger by yelling at a gladiator they disliked or rooting for the fall of a champion. In a way, the games channeled emotions and frustrations that, if directed differently, could have threatened the regime's stability. Do you see any similarities with today? Share your thoughts in the comments. Although our focus is on ancient Rome, it's interesting to see how the legacy of gladiators still resonates today. In pop culture, references to the arena and bloody combat permeate movies, TV series, and even sports competitions. Some compare the intensity of an American football game, where athletes collide violently, to the gladiatorial spirit, or see MMA fights as a modern, though far more regulated version of those ancient battles. However, it is crucial to highlight that, unlike today's athletes who freely enter competitions and can enjoy highly lucrative careers, most gladiators had no choice. Slaves and prisoners of war were forced to risk their lives in the arena, with little hope of freedom. On the other hand, those who were free Roman citizens voluntarily stepping into the ring knew they could become famous, but they also carried the burden of an ambiguous social status, as many aristocrats despised those who exposed themselves in such a public manner. Another point of interest is how religion and philosophy at the time reacted to the games. Some Stoic philosophers, for example, considered the bloody spectacles degrading and contrary to virtue. Seneca, a philosopher of the 1st century AD, wrote letters criticizing the brutality of the fights and the morbid pleasure the audience found in them. On the other hand, various deities and pagan rituals were associated with a gladiator's success or failure, showing that the phenomenon also had religious echoes. With the rise of Christianity as the empire's official religion, gladiatorial, combat began to be increasingly condemned. Christian priests and bishops saw these spectacles as pagan and cruel, calling for their abolition. Over the 4th and 5th centuries, the practice was gradually extinguished, though its decline was already noticeable due to various factors such as rising costs, changing public tastes, and political transformations. To fully understand the importance and complexity of gladiatorial combat, we must balance the romanticized version presented in films with historical facts. While there was real brutality, not everything was about meaningless death. While the audience loved violence, they also appreciated the technique and skill of the fighters. Rome's economy, politics, and culture were deeply intertwined with these spectacles, making them a fundamental part of what it meant to be Roman at the time. Commercialized violence. Gladiator schools competed with one another, and a famous fighter could become the highlight of advertisements in the form of graffiti or small clay pamphlets promoting upcoming matches. Internal hierarchy. Within a school, gladiators had different levels of prestige. Veterans, for example, could help train newcomers. Some even gained a certain degree of freedom to move outside the ludus walls. The role of women. Though less common, female gladiators, gladiatrices, did exist. They occasionally appeared in special events, often generating even more curiosity and scandal. Possibility of manumission. In some cases, an enslaved gladiator could earn their freedom after a specific number of victories, or if their performance greatly pleased the event's sponsor. This fueled the dream, or illusion, that the arena could offer not just fame but also a path out of slavery. When we look at cinematic productions like Gladiator 2000, we see that they often amplify the dramatic aspect of violence to create instant empathy or repulsion in the viewer. This is not necessarily wrong, but rather a storytelling technique that relies on stereotypes to deliver a powerful narrative within a limited runtime. However, Roman reality was much more diverse, with historical nuances that make the subject even more fascinating. At the end of the day, gladiators were a crucial piece of Rome's social and political machinery. More than mere fighters, they symbolized the empire's power, the entertainment of the masses, and the very complexity of Roman civilization, advanced in its achievements in engineering, philosophy, and law, yet also capable of promoting brutal spectacles that seem inconceivable to us today. These contradictions are part of what keeps the topic alive in the collective imagination, making us centuries later still eager to understand who these men and women were, those who defied death in the name of fame, survival, and above all, the circus that is public life.